Welcome back to Sailing El Jaleo. This week's video is going to be very different. There's no intro. I'm just going to get right into it. People have requested information on the Intracoastal Waterway, and I couldn't decide how to deliver it effectively to two different groups of people, so I'm going to create two different videos. This week's video is going to be very short. I'm just going to go over the shallow spots, the current shallow spots in the Intracoastal Waterway, and that'll be the depths and the tide stations that I used as I came north this spring. So it's the most up-to-date information. It's just a couple of months old, so this will be all the shallow spots and the tide stations I used to gauge the depth. So, and then next week I'll have a much more comprehensive version. It'll be probably an hour long. That'll cover the entire Intracoastal Waterway. Today I'm not going to go through the Intracoastal Waterway. I'm just going to hop from point to point. This is designed for people who have been up and down the Intracoastal Waterway and know where they're going. They just want the shallow depth, you know, the shallow spot information. So that's going to be this week. Next week will probably be about an hour long as I go through every anchorage that I've ever used. It's going to be quite comprehensive. And during that, I'll trace the entire path of the Intracoastal Waterway. So the way that I did this is when I was going north this year, all the shallow spots, I knew where they were. I marked them down. I took the depth on my depth gauge, and then I looked at the closest tide station to find out what the state of tide was, and then you know, obviously I subtracted to find out what the depth would be at mean low water. So I'm going to give you the depths at mean low water, and then I'm going to put on the screen here what tide station I use so you can correlate the data as you go presumably south this fall. That's kind of what this is designed for. So so let's go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to try and keep this one as short as possible. So I leave from Delaware City every year, go down the Chesapeake Bay, and the first shallow spot that I run into is in Bogue Sound. And this spot here is 6 feet deep. If you stick to the red side, I have seen people run aground on the green side, so definitely stick to the red side, and it's a little deeper water there, and that was 6 feet deep when I came through in the spring. The next spot is down here at the end of Bogue Sound. There is a shallow spot down here, and that was 6.28 feet, and these are all at mean low water calculated. So, and like I said before, tide station will be on the screen there, so you can correlate that. So the next spot is the Carolina Beach Inlet, and that is a very dynamic area. I actually captured a screenshot of the path that I took through this area in the spring. It was different than it was when I went through in the fall, so this is a massively dynamic area. If you've been through here, the path of travel is almost different every time you go through. Follow the 8 tons and you'll be fine. So even this screenshot that I show you might not be accurate when you go back through there. And they seem to update the Navionics charts not very regularly, so sometimes what you see doesn't match what is on the chart. I always follow the aid to navigations, and that does not seem to have led me astray. Okay, so after that, the next spot we have, okay, so here is the Lockwood's Folly Inlet, and when I came through here in the spring, they were dredging this entire area. So when you come through in the fall, it should be no problem. You should be able to shoot straight through and not have any issues. Next one is the Shallot Inlet, and here I always stick to the red side. It does get shallow on the green side, and on the red side I saw 9.44 feet at mean low water, so that's no problem there. Let's see, the next spot we have, okay, so this is a spot here. Where are we? There's Shallot. Okay, we already passed it. So back here, let's just hop back a little bit. So this point here is the, I believe it's the New River Inlet. Yeah, the New River Inlet. So this place is pretty dynamic, and it was carnage when I came through in the spring because the path of travel has changed going through here, and it is so shallow. You can actually, like all over here, there were people standing up over here fishing. It was only a couple of feet deep. Dogs were out there playing. If you got a good pair of polarized glasses, you can see how shallow it is. So the new path through here, and I think I saved a screenshot of this too, has you going down through here. That is the new path. And there were people that were going on the old path up here, and they were actually running aground. So there was a lot of confusion. Everyone was kind of freaking out when they got to this area in the spring, but like I said, I followed the aids to navigation through here, and it was perfectly fine. Okay, sorry about that little backtrack. I thought I'd mention that. So the next spot here is in Winyah Bay. When you leave Winyah Bay and hop into the ICW, there's a shallow spot there. It was 6.78 feet, so shouldn't cause too many problems for too many people. Let's see. So once you get past the Santee Rivers here, this is the longest sustained shallow stretch on the entire ICW. So between Santee Creek and Charleston, it's just shallow everywhere. In most of the places, it's at least 7 feet, but once you get down here, I stayed over in this anchorage, and then I left at low tide. So I came through here at dead low tide, and at this point here I was actually pushing silt with my keel. So I've got a 5.5 foot draft, and I scrubbed off about a knot of speed. I didn't feel a bump or anything, so the bottom there is very pillowy, but I did slow down significantly, so I knew I was kind of pushing through silt, but it wasn't anything bad. So that was right at mean low tide, and I was hitting silt at 5.5 feet, so it is shallow there. Once we go down here, there's another shallow spot, and that was 6.83 feet, so not too bad there. And then down here, leaving the anchorage, it is shallow again, and that was 7.27 feet, so again, not very bad at all. Down through here, you do want to, this is very shallow through here, you do want to stick to the side that has all of the docks on it. One side has all the docks, the other side is the ocean side, and that side is a lot shallower. Especially once you get down in here, I've actually bumped bottom on the green side, so you do want to stick closer to the dock side there. So this spot up here is a little bit shallow, and that was 7 feet, so again, not horrific. But then all the way down, let's see, we had another spot here, and this is closer to the Dewey's Creek, so this was 6.26 feet, and I have heard of people running aground here, so it might be a very narrow channel there. And then coming out, so I usually anchor up here in Dewey's Creek, and then coming out, once you get back into the Intracoastal Waterway, it is very shallow. It's only 5.67 feet there. So depending upon the lunar cycle, if you're below mean low water, which you are sometimes, you can definitely run aground there. Coming into Charleston, here it is notoriously shallow. The path of travel through here has changed. Just follow the aids to navigation. They have you coming a lot closer to shore, and these charts are definitely different than what they were in the past. So here it is only 5.6 feet deep, so very, very shallow there as well. And that I have actually run aground there. So it was, I think 3 years ago, it was part of the lunar cycle. We were at like negative 0.75 below mean low water, and 3 of us got stuck there. So we just waited for the tide to come in, and everything was fine. Going closer to Charleston, another shallow spot there, and that's 6.75, so again, nothing too drastic. And then over here by the Ben Sawyer Memorial Bridge, it was 7.57, so plenty deep there. Okay, next spot is up here in Stono River. Going past this red buoy here, it does get quite shallow. Now, I've never tried to go down here where it says the deep water is. I've always stuck, maybe I'll try that this year, going a little more towards the green side, but up here it was shallow. It was 6.2 feet, so it does get pretty thin up there. The next spot is the Fenwick Cut, so let's see, we're down here. So the Fenwick Cut, some people are afraid of it. It was 6.62 feet, so plenty deep. It can be a little intimidating there. And the spot that does always suck is the Ash Island Cut. Now the tidal or the currents through this area are very messed up. They're not what you think they would be. Man put all these cuts in and kind of effed up nature's plan, so the currents do not flow in the directions that you think they may here. It's a very confusing area, and that leads to a lot of silting in the Ash Island Cut. And they did dredge this. It was either 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago now. They dredged the entire thing, and it was great for about 2 years. It was 10 feet deep, then it was 8 feet deep, and now, unfortunately, it's shallow again. So on the south end, when you're exiting the Ash Island cut, this year it was only 5 feet deep. So you definitely want to be careful. That is the shallowest spot that I noted this year on the entire ICW was at the Ash Island cut. So from there, we are going to Ramshorn Creek, so let's find Calabogue Sound, there it is, and down here. Now this map changed about 2 years ago, and they have this deep vein over here. I've never tried to go that way. In the past, this entire area was all shown as a shoal, but for some reason the map changed. I don't know if they did dredging here. I've never tried to go this way, to go around. I always stick to the ICW path, but there it was 5.41 feet, so another shallow spot if you're coming through at low tide. Okay, from there we go to the Fields cut, and here again, you know, down here it is very deep going through the Fields cut. If you stick very close to shore there, it does, yeah, the red markers there, but yeah, if you stick over here it is very deep. But once you get up in here it does thin out quite a bit, and up there it was only 6.31 feet, so again, not horrific. Okay, the next spot we've got is Hellgate. That is down here. Hellgate, if you've been through the ICW, you know it's a very dynamic area. It can be tricky, and this year I measured 6.17 feet at mean low water, so definitely a spot to be careful at, especially with the changing tides and how dynamic that area is. Okay, then we've got the Mud River, Little Mud River. So let's find Altamaha Sound, which is there, and there is the Mud River. So coming south, the entire Mud River is very shallow. So coming down here, you will see 7 feet. You want to stick to the outside corner here. Whenever you're in doubt, you always want to stick to the outside corners. That's where the water path goes through when the currents, you know, are running through there. So typically the deeper water's on the outside edge. Typically on the inside edge it will be shallower. That's where sediment tends to fall out of the water. So over here on the outside of this corner it was only 5.5 feet deep. So another very shallow spot. And then coming out of Little Mud River, it was 6.3, so not too bad there. Okay, next spot we got is the Frederica River, and that is a side quest. I always go down the Frederica River. I deviate from the Intracoastal Waterway here, and this spot here is 6.3 feet, so you can get through there anytime. And I always stay down here at Fort Frederica. It's a nice little side quest journey there. And the Frederica River is wonderful. It's a nice little side journey. So let's see, from there we've got Jekyll Creek, which is always notoriously shallow. It's only maybe a mile long, so it's really not that long of a stretch, but it is shallow. And coming through I did see 5.64 feet at mean low water, so again habitually a shallow spot. It always has been. Okay, next is, so St. Andrew Sound. You can go through St. Andrew Sound. Most people don't know, but you can go through 2 ways. The ICW has you coming out here into the, you know, just dipping your toe in the Atlantic and then coming back in. But I always take an alternate route. So I come out here from Jekyll Harbor and I go the backdoor route. So it is plenty deep. It's always at least 20 feet deep all through here. Once you're around here, if you read some of these cautions, they say the charts are incorrect and you cannot make it through, but I guarantee you 100% you can. I've gone this way 4 times now. And if you just stick to the, when you're around this green, if you just stick to the deep water here, there is one spot right here where it is 7.42 feet, but then it deepens out all the way back to the ICW. So it is about a mile longer, that alternate route, but especially if it's windy and very choppy out in the ocean, that backdoor route is always calm. You know, it's a much better path of travel, and that's the way I go every time now. Okay, we've got Sisters Creek. So coming down here, there's Amelia, so here we go. So this here, Nassau Sound, this was getting dredged when I came through in the spring. So, you know, the ICW is supposed to cut across this shoal, but I have bump bottom there about 3 years ago, and that was not at low tide, so it's very, very shallow there. This shoal has extended south, or I guess it would be east, southeast. So I always come down here and follow the deep water around and then rejoin the ICW. Every person that I've ever been in the vicinity of them when they go through there does the same thing. No one tries to cut across that shoal. Now that it's been dredged, I don't know if it's safe to go across. I certainly won't try it, but you know, you do you. Down here was always shallow, and I always, in the past, I've always gone behind red 50 here. You know, you're supposed to go on the other side, but this was shallow over here, so I always went behind red 50, and I did that again this year. And that was 7.38 feet going behind red 50. There's a deep vein of water that comes across here. Now, it may be perfectly fine to go through here. All of this may have been dredged. They may have just not updated the charts yet, which is totally possible. When I go through in the fall, I'm going to try and stick to the ICW just to see if that has been dredged or not. It should have been, because they were there when I came through in the spring. So, and then Sisters Creek, you know, you'll see shallow spots all through here. You'll see warnings, but if you stick to the magenta line, I saw at least 7 feet the entire way, so that's no problem at all. And from there we go down, we go to where we stay for our winter is down in Matanzas Inlet, which is just south of St. Augustine. And I did just want to make a note here. Last year I did spend some time up here anchored. You know, this Volano Beach is a wonderful place to go to reprovision, so we spent, you know, we would go up there every 3 weeks just to get supplies. And a lot of people were trying to cut the shoal. I don't know if a different nav program has the ICW running over here, but it does get very, very shallow in here, and I saw at least 4 people run aground there. So if you stick closer to the dock side over here and follow the Atons, you will definitely be able to get through there. So I don't know if they were using a different program. I'm not sure. I've always only ever used Navionics. So Navionics does have you going through the correct path, but it does get shallow through here. So this shoal has definitely extended out towards the channel there. And then we go down to Matanzas Inlet. That's where we hang out all winter long. We stay in North Florida. It's a little bit cooler. The crew is much happier up there, and there are beaches that are hard to get to for the general public where the pups can run around. So that's where we spend most of our time in the winter. We stay there usually for a couple of months. So it's and they've got a neat, you know, 1700s Spanish fort there. So it's just a neat area for us to hang out. So that's it. I'm sure there are probably shallow spots south. The furthest I've ever gone south is to Titusville, which is down here. I went down to watch a SpaceX launch, and I haven't gone any further south than that. It just gets too populated. We like having a little, you know, peace and quiet and solitude, and Matanzas Inlet is perfect for that for us. So anyway, those are all of the current shallow spots, and like I said, I'll put the tide stations on the screen so you can correlate data going back when you're heading down in the fall. And hopefully this information was helpful to some. If you want a more comprehensive look, next week I'll be tracing the entire Intracoastal Waterway, so that'll be good for people who have never gone down it, who might want to have an advanced look, and I'll go over every anchorage that I've ever stayed at. So next week I think will probably be an hour, if not longer, because there are hundreds of anchorages. So if you want a more comprehensive look, that'll be next week, and I'm going to link to both the videos. So if you're on the long video and you want the short video, that link will be down there. And if you're on the short video and you want the long video, that link will be down there, but not for a week. So I'll update this post when I have that up and alive. So anyway, hope the information was useful, and I guess I'll catch you all next week. And that's all we have time for this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I wouldn't make these videos. And my Patreon crew is Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Denise and Eli Sackett, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, Matthew Sponton, Peter Allen, and Natalie Linehan. Thank you guys so very much. Your support really means the world to me. I do have one legacy patron member, and her name is Joan Linbo. Unfortunately, she has passed on, but she lives on in our hearts forever. We really miss you, Joan. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below, and that'll take you to our Patreon page where you can sign up. And there are hundreds, literally hundreds of extra videos and photos of our travels, and I try and keep everything there up to date and post at least once or twice a week, so it gives you a little peek behind the curtain. If you do like our videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'll help us out more than you'll ever know, and that actually doesn't cost you anything, so hit that like button. Alrighty, I hope you all are well, and we'll see you next week.